Hello everybody, welcome back to another What If, and it's a one-shot. I know, very weird for me to do a one-shot, right? But, either way, the What If one-shot is, what if Deku was Krampus? Why Krampus? Because why not? And not a lot of people do what ifs about him anyway, and I thought, oh, you know what? Put that on the option as one of the what ifs for this, well, Christmas season. If you're having snow and all that, well, good for you. But basically, I'm going to set up some things real quick. Just real fast, then we'll get into the story. And I mean, it'll be really quick. So basically, my version of Krampus, he's going to have the name and somewhat the concept of the original Krampus. But he's, instead of going after bad children, he's going after villains or just bad people in general who have done horrible things. But, the public system did not punish them because they either got away from it or were able to basically use their money to get scot-free from it, or lawyers and that type of shit. So yeah, and I'm just letting you know that's how it's going to go. And so he's gonna have something that is similar to Ghost Rider, where he can sense when someone has been naughty or guilty of stealing, killing, basically just doing outright evil things. He doesn't see completely all of stealing genuinely bad. So for example, if you have to steal because you literally could not afford anything, and every time you get a job you just got fired or something happened, he doesn't see that as bad, but he sees it bad if you steal money or steal gold or rob a bank, because you're effectively hurting the innocent, and he does not like that. So I am glad to set that up for you guys. And also there's going to be 2 other videos for Christmas as well. And also, just letting you know, if this comes after Christmas, I'm sorry for that. That's all I have to say. And now we can get into this what if. Then where we begin? We begin with All For One. Yes, that All For One, who is currently asleep. He's having a nightmare. A terrible dream. Something that scared him when he was little. And usually nothing does, because he always on top of everything. But this one particular thing terrified him, scared him out of everyone, and it was Krampus. Krampus scared him, and he's having that vision, that dream. The first time Krampus went after him, and he thought Krampus had a quirk, or some way where All For One could just take it and he's, useless. But the moment All For One, as a child, tried to take anything from Krampus, Krampus looked at him and just laughed. Laughing so much that All For One, for the rest of his days, remembers that laugh. And it was the first time he was so close to death. How, you may ask, or you may wonder? Well, on that day, All For One had his hand broken. The one that allowed him to steal powers from others. But he was lucky that day that Krampus didn't know that All For One stole a regeneration quirk. So he was able to get his hand back. But he knows it's out there. And he knows this version of the urban legend of Krampus goes for everyone, not just children who are naughty. Also, it goes after mostly adults who have done wrong to the innocent, who have done pure evil. And All For One, from his dream, wakes up in a cold sweat, and he looks terrified. He rushes to the calendar, checking what month it is, and he stands there staring at the calendar, because it's December, the dreaded holiday for 2 things. Because All For One hates it for the fact being that, everyone is more nicer, but mostly because it brings hope, and he doesn't like that. The second thing is Krampus comes out for the whole month. He's actually scared for once. All For One is. So, what does he do? He goes, turns on his communication device, and instantly tells the doctor, "Yo, my guy, okay, I am really going to take all Christmas off. I'm going to be in a sealed bunker for the whole month. Okay? Tell Shigaraki and the League of Villains to find a way to save themselves, I guess. Because I ain't helping no one this time. I'm just going to be locked up in here. Okay? Okay, bye." And before the doctor could say anything, he hanged up. He just hung up straight away. The doctor, on the other side, looks flabbergasted and confused. Because, well, the doctor has done bad things, but it wasn't to the innocent. It was to those who are already dead. So, well, Krampus wouldn't go after him, so he doesn't know about this legend. Because, well, he doesn't believe Christmas stuff because, well, duh, it's all fake. Well, in his mind, at least. But that's when some things are going to change, because the fact being that, well, Shigaraki and the League of Villains actually have harmed the innocent and have killed a lot of those who were their own type. Even though they were villains, it still is murder, and that is still pretty evil when it's not justified in any way. But still, like I said. But that's when the doctor calls up Shigaraki, and he says, "Hey, Shigaraki, your master told me to tell you this, well, to survive Christmas." I know, it's so weird, isn't it? But the weirdest thing is, he looked actually very scared, and he said he was going to be in a bunker for the whole month. Did he ever tell you anything like that too, or no? And Shigaraki looks at him while Shigaraki's scratching his chin and face. He says, "Oh, do you think? No, not really. He has never told me anything like that. But, why would he be afraid of anything? He's really powerful, and he's like the final boss. So, why would he hide away in any type of way?" The doctor just shrugs his shoulders and says, I genuinely don't know, Shigaraki, but he just dipped out. Like, literally, he put this as like a announcement to me and told me to tell you this. Guess to give himself more time. I don't know, but I guess he's not gonna be here for the whole December for some reason. But again, like he said survive, I guess, or find a way to hide or whatever. But hey, again, he is the master after all, so take his words very, very, very seriously. Shigaraki is still hesitant, even though this is all for one, his master, the dude who saved him from being basically homeless. But he's like, you know what? If he's my master, I'm gonna listen to him. So he looks at the doctor and says, "Well, fair enough. If it is from the master, it makes perfect sense, I guess. But I don't know where to hide. Whatever. Try to survive Christmas, I guess, doctor." And then after that, that's when they hang up the communications and stop talking for each other. But that's when Shigaraki just goes to the League of Villains, and he looks at all of them and he says, Okay, just letting you know, I was called by the doctor, and apparently All For One told the doctor that, well, to survive Christmas. I don't know what that exactly means, but the doctor said my master, our boss, All For One, was terrified. He looked genuinely scared. I don't know how to feel about this, and it genuinely terrifies me. Because if that guy is scared of something, then what would scare him that bad? Then Dobby says, well, in all honesty, I don't know. What could scare basically the symbol of fear? Toga's like, I don't know, but hey, whatever. Hopefully it's not gonna get us, because that would be pretty lame. And you could tell she's obviously joking about it. But Spinner's like, I don't know. you know what? I'm gonna try to look up something. I don't know. Something that could scare All For One or whatever. And freaking Kirigiri's like, oh, actually, I think I know what it is. And all the League of Villains look at him and says, wait, you too, Kirigiri? And Kirigiri's like, oh, yes, I do. Well, it's very simple. He was scared of Krampus. And all the League of Villains just look at him. They don't know how to react. They just all stare at him like completely stunned, because All For One, the big evil villain, scared of something that's myth, something that's not even real? Krampus? That's like the most weirdest thing to be scared of. But Kirigiri looks so serious about it as he says, oh no, he's like terrified against Krampus. Like, apparently every year Krampus tries to get All For One. And I mean, like, legitimately. Like, here, I got evidence and everything. I could show you if you want. And then he pulls up his phone, showing them the countless times Krampus was trying to get through that bunker door to get All For One. And also, Kirigiri also shows all the other times where Krampus has succeeded of getting other villains too, and it did not look pleasant. I mean, literally the last one they found, his organs were like outside his body. His stomach was ripped open, and well, his head was just torn off, genuinely. And freaking Kirigiri is like, yeah, like that's one of them we found. Like, trust me, a lot of villains this time of year who actually know who Krampus is, you know, they just hide or find a way to hide or just go underground deep and then, you know, just lock everything down so Krampus can't get them. Shigaraki's like, wait, what the fuck? Krampus is real? And Kirigiri's like, well, yeah, he's real. And after Kirigiri says that, Toga's like, wait, what? He's actually real? And he, like, wait, but why has he never came after us until now? And Kirigiri looks at them and says, well, it's very simple. He does follow some things of the legend, but not everything. Like, that you can clearly see from my evidence from earlier. But still, he does follow a lot of it. Like, he only comes out around Christmas time. And he's usually the counterpart of Santa. And then Shigaraki thinks about it as he says, wait, Santa's real too? Because if Krampus is real, wouldn't Santa be real? And freaking Kirigiri's like, actually, we don't know if Santa's real. Like, all we know is Krampus. So we only know Krampus is real. But might be a chance Santa's real too. Then Dobby's like, never thought I would debate the day that Santa could be real. But then that's when we change point of view. A few days after when Christmas began. And it's, well, Deku, or Krampus. And he's having a fond memory of when he first started a millennia ago, where he talked to Saint Nick, or Santa in this case. He remembers that day fondly. He looks back at it, and he remembers the good times. Him working with Santa. Santa, well, giving the gifts to the innocent and basically the innocent and good. And he remembers himself, Krampus, delivering punishment to the guilty and the bad children. But he remembers just giving the children coal for this time and all that stuff. And he's always aware of who does the most evil, who does the most sickening things, so he can go after them and punish them for their crimes and either put them down permanently for those who were extremely evil, those who could do the evil. But then Deku just locks in, remembering who he's going after. Endeavor, the number 2 hero. Why is he going after Endeavor, you may ask? Well, simple. This is before Endeavor does his whole redemption arc. So, terrible husband and what he did. So Deku's going after him for that reason alone. Because, mentally breaking your wife and abusing your children is not a good thing, by the way. So, Deku, as Krampus, is slowly approaching the Todoroki household. And, well, he's looking around. He's obviously seeing the beautiful decor. And, well, he sees a little thing that looks like his old friend, Saint Nick. And, well, Deku just chuckles a bit. Because it, is a funny version to see of Santa. But he continues on his way until he finally ends up in Endeavor's room. And Endeavor's awake, but he was, sit down on his, work table. He's basically doing work stuff. And that's when Deku says, "Oh, Endeavor, you are super naughty on my list today." And Endeavor turns around and he's like, who the fuck are you? And Deku just gives him a smile and says, "I'm Krampus. And I'm, not really happy to see you, Endeavor." And Endeavor activates his quirk, blazing up, prepared for a fight. And Deku just gives him a very unsettling smile as he says, "Oh, you're trying to fight me, Endeavor? Well, you're not going to win on this one if you do that. But in the end, you do need to be punished for your crimes against your own family." Endeavor looks pretty taken from what Deku said. And he just looks at him and says, "Whatever. Just shut the fuck up, Krampus. I don't even know what you are, or even if you think you're gonna punish me for whatever you think I've done, but I'll just beat you." And right when he was about to say something else, Deku was right behind him again. And Endeavor slowly tilts his head down, seeing a fist through his chest from behind, as Deku says, "Oh, sorry. In the end, you're not gonna die from this. I'm just going to make you paralyzed for a little while, Hey, but either way, at least you're not gonna be dead." And then that's when Deku just leaves a big laugh as he pulls his arm back, letting Endeavor fall to the floor as he's gasping, trying to breathe, just there on the floor, as Deku crouches down and says, "Oh, well, in the end, just die for me if you want, or live. But this is the only time I'm going to show you mercy, because, you punished your children and your wife. So, in the end, the punishment should fit the crime, right?" Then after Deku smiles about it, he reflects on his first moment of his choices. The first time when he done what he did right now. Really, he remembers it super fondly, though. It was like another Tuesday for Deku. Really was. Where he basically done the same thing to a nobleman who thought, letting a bunch of peasants starve to death while it was winter was a good benefit for the guy. So, Deku did the same thing, leaving him paralyzed and, starving. But, hey, stuff happens all the time. But anyway, in this moment, Krampus decides to dip out and leave. The next morning, reports and heroes found Endeavor paralyzed from the waist down. Literally, 3 days. It took 3 days to find him, because his family didn't really hear him because he was in his study, and all of them were not home at the time. They were all on their own little trip, and Shoto, or Todoroki, during this time was at UA during the whole dorm system stuff. So they were not aware of any of this. So Literally, the pro heroes had to make a report of this, and the news has reported about this, and they, again, don't know that Krampus exists, so they just take it as a villain that done this to Endeavor, but Endeavor knows the truth, and even though he keeps telling them that it's Krampus, they don't believe him, and they think he has somehow went insane, so, ironically, in a weird twist, put him in a mental hospital the same way how he did it with his own wife. So, in a weird twist, Endeavor's now, well, sciencely and legally declared insane. But while that's going on, Dobby from the League of Villains saw what happened on the news, and he's very suspicious. He still kind of, like, he really does believe it's Krampus, but he doesn't know what to make of it right now because, well, Endeavor suffered, but it wasn't from him. It was from Krampus. Doesn't know how to feel about it. So, that's when we go a few days later down the line where another report on the news comes up and the villains get to see this. A certain head of the Hero Safety Commission was, well, basically she was armless after everything and kind of bloodied and bruised and almost beaten to death. Why? Well, Krampus thought it would be a very, very, very entertaining way to make her still be alive but unable to continue her work. Because in the end, that message that Krampus did made the, well, heroes, society, and all that more intense, because in the end, Krampus is not playing anymore. This is not his games. Because, why? Well, he already had to deal with certain things like that before, and he's getting tired of, well, evil humans getting away with evil things. So, this time he is going on a little bit on a rampage. Just a little. But, after that, one of the members of the League of Villains, on the same day, by the way, was walking back to their base when he hears a voice. Ah, yes, Mr. Compress. You thought doing what your father done and being, well, how you are was fun? Magic? Really? And Mr. Compress turns around saying, Krampus? Really? I did not expect you. And right when he says that, Krampus cuts him off saying, oh, no. We're not going to do this type of games. I swear. Trust me, it was really, really annoying when people think they can just worm their way out. And that's what I feel like you're trying to do, huh? Trying to talk and convince me not to hurt you. In all honesty, I don't really need to kill you, but I have my own ways to make you be punished for your crimes. Because in all honesty, there is more ways to punish someone than you think, man. But hey, trust me on that. Mr. Compress, I have my ways. And Mr. Compress is like, so there ain't no way, not at all, that I can try to convince you to not punish me in any way, to not kill me or any way. I genuinely don't know what you're trying to do, but in the end, it's all in the theater, I guess. But at least, if we're gonna do this, can I at least have a fair fight? And Krampus smiles about this as he says, you know what, for funsies, and since I'm getting a little stale at just wiping you or anyone who is pretty evil, beating them up so quickly, why not? Let's have a proper fight. Then they go at it, duking it out as, well, Mr. Compress wanted. And you might be wondering, why would Deku ever do something like this? Or, well, Krampus particularly in this case. Well, he got bored, so he wanted to make it interesting this time. And since Mr. Compress said that, Well, he was like, oh, screw it. You know what? I'm bored. Let's do this. Well, that's what he thought mentally, but he had to look at least a little professional. So when they're going at it, like Mr. Compress is using all his abilities as much as he can, like using his power to turn basically anything around him into marbles and then throw it at Krampus. Even try to capture Krampus or use his power to basically hurt Krampus. Didn't work because Deku just regenerated back from those attacks, and at this point Krampus is actually playing with him, using him like a toy in a sense, lightly scratching him a bit. And I mean, these are not small scratches, these are big scratches where you can even see trickles of blood coming out. So they could be lethal if Deku really wants to, but he keeps playing with him a little more until Deku finally starts getting bored. But for one final fun part of the fight, grabs Compress from the back of the head, slamming him against the wall, breaking it, and in the process, breaking Mr. Compress's skull, fracturing it, like straight up fracturing it, like brain coming out and everything, and like eyeballs just rolled on the floor. Even the lower jaw like kind of left a very surprised, shocked expression. Then Deku just lets go as he says, I hate it when these gosh darn evil people make a bloody mess like this. It's so much more hard work. But oh well, I guess. But then that's when he goes and, he continues doing other things. In this case, what do I mean other things, by the way? It's very simple. And basically, there's like basically a lot more. But after that, Deku looks at him saying, these horrible people. I swear I really do not like them at all. Like, their transgressions to those who are so innocent and not the ones who have caused their evil, wicked ways. But anyway, after, what Deku did to Mr. Compress, he disappears like if he was never there, because he's going for another target that he can sense already, really. Who's he sensing, you may ask? Well, it's very simple. He is sensing Overhaul and the GI Saikai. Hopefully I said that right. I probably butchered it, but still. He's going after them because they have committed so many crimes and, a lot of practically fucked up shit. But he's not going to go for the old boss for obvious reasons, because the old boss was already kind of, dealt with. And basically Deku counts that as a punishment, so nothing to really fix there. But he appears in front of their base, and what he does is, let's just say Krampus, or Deku in this situation, he gets to work. And I mean, I'm just gonna call them gang members because I can't say their actual name too good. So the gang members for this Akuza just get wrecked. They get destroyed by Krampus. He does not be sneaky about this at all. He just goes directly through the middle. Like, basically, like, some dudes try to stop him. Nah, he either cut open their stomachs, slamming them, either some in the head very hard to the point where it's cracking skulls, or some where it's just like, basically cuts off their legs and lets them bleed to death. Krampus is not peaceful when it comes down to the evil, and he will punish those who have done crimes that are severe. And I mean, he does not spare anyone from this who are evil. He continues, even Rappa. He beats down Rappa. He beats him down so hard that he is left there bleeding. And his shield guy, the dude who is, basically his shield, could not put up his barriers in time. And when he tried to protect himself, Krampus was already in the shield and just snapped his neck really fast. And Deku just continues going on this rampage, taking out more of the Hisakasa, or gang members in this case. And he is like just going at it, like it's a field day for him. But he does run into that drunk guy, and his power actually did work on Krampus a little bit, making him a little drunk, but not enough to actually stop him. And that's when just Deku looks at the guy saying, "Really? You're trying to make me drunk? Come here." Basically grabs the guy and rips off his face. Yeah, basically doing a Optimus Prime. But anyway, he continues on his rampage, taking down more and more and more until there's only one person left. Overhaul. He makes his way to the guy, and when Overhaul does his whole quirk powers to try to, impale freaking Deku in this case, it doesn't work, because he actually succeeded at one point in impaling Deku with a spike, thinking he won, until Krampus just starts laughing, and he says, "Oh, nice try, you fucking idiot. You really think this was gonna get me down?" And after Krampus Deku says that, he poofs into smoke and reappears right behind Overhaul and basically plunges his fist through Overhaul's heart, leaving him there to die. And, leaves Overhaul to bleed out. But right when he was about to leave, he came across a little girl. And he walks over, and he knows this girl is innocent. That all the things that the bad men did was nothing to reflect on the girl. She had no control over anything. So he kneels down, even though he looks very scary, but he kneels down and looks at her and says, "What's your name, sweetie? Don't be afraid." And the girl looks up at him saying, "My name's Eri." Deku gently even indicates that he's going to pick her up. And when he does, she kind of flinchiously tries to curl into herself, trying to make herself look smaller. And he says, don't worry, little one. I'm going to take you from this place. Somewhere safe. Somewhere where you don't have to see what I have done to these bad men. Alright? Eri looks up at him and says, "Really? Oh, I can't believe it." And right then and there, they both disappear, like if they were never there. And where does Deku take her, you may ask? Well, he takes her to UA in front of Mr. Aizawa's house. Or dorm room? Yeah, dorm room. So he basically puts the little girl in his room, but right when he does that, Aizawa already entered the room and, went up in a fighting stance because he knows who Krampus is. He has already figured out who Krampus was and all that stuff, because most of the villains were in shock about it, and Aizawa is like kind of really smart hero, so I feel like he would actually put all that stuff together. But anyway, Aizawa comes in and he's like, "What are you doing with that little girl? And why are you here? You here to attack one of my students?" Like Aizawa would be. And Krampus looks at him with a serious face saying, "No. This little girl had a bad experience with something. I wrote a note. She has it. You'll learn more of it." And after Deku says that, Aizawa tries to activate his quirk to stop Krampus from leaving. But like before, Krampus disappears in smoke, leaving Eri behind. Then we change to another point of view. Yes. Sorry if I didn't sound so enthusiastic. I was trying to make it sound mysterious earlier. But still, like I said, so the new point of view that we switch to is, Spinner. Yes, the League of Villains wannabe who wants to be like Stain. This is gonna be fun for Krampus, because in the end, we already know what's gonna happen, do we? We all do, don't we? But either way, it continues on where Spinner, he's kind of chilling. He's playing the game. He's a gamer. So he's sitting there playing some Marvel Rivals, because why not? And he's maining as a villain Loki, because why not? Deception is pretty funny. And he's doing good until all of a sudden, the power just gone. Instant. Darkness to his whole house, or wherever he is, basically. And that's when Krampus starts laughing. And Spinner can hear it all over. He's like, what the? Who the fuck is this? And, well, Deku says, oh, it's me, Krampus. And honestly, you are a joke of a human being. I am deeply surprised of how, well, amusing you are to assume so much stuff, isn't it? To assume that you could be like your idol, the hero killer, in any way, really. But in all honesty, we both know how this is gonna end. You're gonna be down forever, and you're not gonna do any more evil things. Because in all honesty, siding with evil, committing horrible acts regardless, oh boy, I ain't gonna forgive this. No siree. And Spinner's like, what? What do you even mean of all this? Krampus, really? Already? I thought I had more time at least. But hey, you gonna do what you did to Mr. Compress with me? At least give me a chance to fight back? Krampus just gives him a smile, saying, oh, maybe, or maybe not. We don't really know, in all honesty. Then he appears behind Spinner as he's about to attack him until a bunch of Nomu show up out of nowhere, tackling Krampus out the window. And Spinner, oh, he just runs like hell. He runs like hell. He saw what happened to the Akuza members because League of Villains did hear that whole freaking news report of what happened, because this is like a few days after it. So they literally heard. And the League of Villains are now protecting themselves with a bunch of Nomu. But right now, they just did it as a precaution to see what would happen, to see if anything would, go up while any of them were doing something that they usually would do, and to try to see if the Nomu could be effective against Krampus. But here's the sad truth. These low-tier Nomu didn't even stand a chance, because when Krampus was tackled out the window, the one who tackled him, he already just grabbed the brain, took it out, and crushed it with his bare hands, killing the Nomu practically instantly. And when it fell dead, 2 more Nomu showed up. One that could fly and another one that could, attack. And a little bit of a better one that's kind of like the one from the sports festival, but that's really it. So it's not super smart, it's just really dumb. So again, the Nomu's attack, well, Krampus in this case, and he shreds them up. The one that flies, he clipped its wings, made it crash to the ground, then flung it to another Nomu, crashing them both through a wall, and practically killing them on impact, because that's how hard Deku basically hit them. And the one that's kind of like the one from the UA, freaking attack, that similar one where it has a bit of similar stuff to it, where it's more smarter. Oh, they go at it, and Krampus finally defeats it by just ripping it in half, and before it can regenerate, basically snapping its neck, like basically how Superman did it with the that other Kryptonian type style, But after he done that, he goes after Spinner with more intensity. And Spinner is still running. He's running like hell, trying to get to the other League of Villain members. But then all of a sudden, some weird tendril-like things grip his leg and drag him towards Krampus. And Spinner's holding up his arms, begging for his life. But Deku doesn't care. He just steps on Spinner, literally crushing the guy's head like if he was nothing. Like if he was worth nothing. And Deku just looks down with a big grin on his face, saying, "Oh, you gave me a little trouble there. How naughty of you. But in the end, you were just pointless and, well, wasting my time, Spinner, in all honesty. Well, I love the fact that I talk to you like if you can actually hear me. Then after Deku did that, like before, he disappears. A few more days pass and the League of Villains found out what happened to the Nomu and Spinner. And it did look like Spinner did get away for a lot longer. But because of this, the League of Villain members are actually terrified of Krampus. They don't know what to do, and All For One is like actually ignoring everybody. He is refusing to help anyone right now. He is actually terrified of Krampus, like genuinely. And luckily for All For One, he is somewhere where Krampus cannot detect him. He cannot find All For One. So Krampus is just doing his usual routine where he goes after the villains. So we continue on Krampus's rampage, but he went after Stain. And what Krampus knows about Stain, because, well, just like Santa, he knows that Stain did some pretty evil things without realizing it. So, since Stain did do evil, but also did do good at the same time, Krampus is gonna leave him with a little warning. Not a verbal one, but a little bit of a fight. So, while Stain is about to kill, well, Ida, Krampus appears right behind him saying, "Are you sure that was a good opportunity or choice?" And Stain's like, "I'm killing this false hero who claims to be a hero, but they wanted vengeance against me." Krampus shrugs as he says, "In all honesty, I don't really particularly care how you see certain things, but I will say this, in all honesty, don't be so blinded by your own ideals, Stain." Stain raises an eyebrow, saying, What? What do you mean by that? What do you mean that I shouldn't be blinded by my own ideals?" Krampus says, "Well, in all honesty, he's still young, still learning, and yes, what he was about to do is pretty bad, and even how he ignored this hero who's bleeding out. But in all honesty, children need to learn, and he is still a child, a hero student. And in all honesty, if you kill him, are you even better than these fake heroes?" Stain shrugs, saying, "You have a fair point, Krampus. I assume that's what you are. I've been hearing it underneath the, well, vigilante and villain underground really about you." And Krampus is like, "Oh, so you did hear of me. But since you did do good and evil, I ain't gonna kill you, in all honesty. But you still did bad. So, in a sense, you have to be punished in some way." And Stain looks at him and says, "What do you mean by ah?" And right when he screams like that, Krampus was already in front of him. He crushed Stain's hand. As Krampus says, "That's what I meant. But in all cases, that's what you only get from me. In all honesty, let the child live and take a moment to choose your fucking decisions in this case." Then, after Krampus Deku says that, he just disappears. Because literally, that's the only reason he was there. To punish Stain in some way. But, in the end, in Krampus's eyes, he succeeded. Since Stain was kind of like 50-50, really. Because he did good, but he also did bad. So, well, Stain just sits there, debating his life right now. Like, in all honesty, he really is. And he's like, "Damn, I can't believe Krampus is real. How is Santa real? Yeah, whatever." And before Stain could do anything, that's when Todoroki shows up and, freezes Stain in place while he helps Ida and helps the injured hero. But then that's when we cut a little few days more in the future. And who's next on the chopping block, you may be thinking? It's no other than Toga, the little psychopath that we all care about and all that. But still, in the end, she is doing her little, well, psychopathic type stuff as she's, getting the sweet blood of her people that she thinks she cares about. And right when she's doing that, and, basically stabbing the shit out of someone to try to get their blood and all that type of stuff. But really, she had this whole place set up for Krampus. Because, well, the League of Villains did have a whole conversation of what happened to Splinter. So they perfectly planned for this one. Or so far that they assumed. So as she's stabbing and smiling about her, well, supposed victim, Krampus shows up, and that's when she turns around and says, "Haha, I got you." And Deku takes a moment, looking at her, and raises an eyebrow as he says, "What do you mean that you got me?" And right when he said that, that's when a bunch of Nomus, and I mean a lot of Nomus, like almost 100 Nomus, come out of nowhere, of walls, of the floors, the ceiling, to jump Krampus, to basically beat up this version of Deku. And again, as they're beating up Krampus in this case, Toga does join into the fight, unlike Splinter, because really he wanted to get away. But Toga is completely the opposite. She's going in and trying to help out the Nomu, doing her technique where no one can actually sense her. So as Krampus is fighting some of these Nomus, and some of them are actually doing damage to him because these are more tougher Nomu, really tougher. They're like the ones from, it's like the one from the USJ, attack. They're throwing hands, some of them are hitting Krampus in the face, chin, and the stomach, the back, arms, legs, and it is hurting him, but he is fighting back and killing a good amount of them. And as Toga's, she's trying to help in any way, slicing Krampus and on the joints of a person's body. So, going for the knees, going for the back of the knees, going for the arms, the ankles, all that stuff. She's trying, and Krampus is somewhat, kind of dulling down a bit, but it's not stopping him. And in the end, he does finally kill all the Nomus by slamming some into the ground, ripping some where their heads are ripped off, crushing some from the brain. Heck, even for one, he completely turned one's head all the way around, basically making it be on backwards. And when Toga tries to go in and stab him on the back, he turns around, and this is Deku's brain here. So he turns around, guessing when Toga's gonna try to attack him, grabbing her by the waist and just crushing her waist. And yes, he actually fully crushes Toga's waist instantly. He instantly drops her to the ground. She's there on the ground, breathing hard, heavy. She's like, you're a monster. And Deku just looks at her saying, "I know, but you are the biggest monster." Then after he says that, he just crushes her head with his foot. Basically, just a bloody mess in the end. And he's like, damn, they really tried this time to kill me. It didn't really work. A very futile attempt. Honestly, I can give them that. But hey, I had a lot of fun. And in the end, he had a lot of fun doing what he did and all that stuff. And who's he saying that to? Well, mostly himself. But besides that, though, that's when we continue a few days after Toga's death, and the League of Villains regroup, or, in this case, whoever is still alive, regroups. Twice, Dabi, Shigaraki, really, and what's his name again? Oh well, I'll have him on screen if you don't remember, or if I don't remember how to say his name. But basically, the guy that Shigaraki talked to bring all these other individuals together. There you go. So basically, they all sit there, and he says, "Oh my gosh, we lost another member, and still, we can't recruit new villains at this time, because if we do, well, Krampus is probably going to go after them too. And either way, we can't be affording to lose our numbers." And that's what Shigaraki says that. Dabi's like, you know what? Yeah, you're right. In all honesty, we are losing a lot of members already. And, like, again, what he did to the Jihazaikai, and also what he also did to, like, freaking, well, the hero killer Stain. In all honesty, what he did to Stain wasn't that bad, but still, it was surprising, really. Didn't kill Stain though, but why not? That's the real question. And that's when Twice goes like, maybe because he likes him. Nah, he just didn't feel like it. And that's when Kirigiri's like, maybe because Stain wasn't straight up evil, doing evil things from a certain point of time. I guess. But in the end, Shigaraki, it's up to you, or really all of you in this case, to decide of whatever. In the end, I will try to help in any necessary type way. But in my opinion, the Nomu are not really working against this Krampus. We already tried it twice, or tried it where it was more expensive Nomu, and it did not work. Shigaraki looks at Kirigiri and he says, you know what? You're right. In all honesty, we need a different way. We need a better unit. A better minion, or mini-boss in this case. But then that's when their meeting concludes and they leave. Until their vendor guy, you know, the one who brought them all together, you know, he tries to leave, and once when he turns the corner, punched straight through the chest, and his heart pulling out from his body. As Krampus says, oh, you use so much others to make your own greed. But in the end, your greed was your downfall, wasn't it? Either way, I don't have the heart to deal with you right now anyway. Because in the end, you're just a normal man. After Deku says that, he drops the heart and disappears. But the other members of the League of Villains, the ones who are still left anyway, didn't know about this, so in the end, they continue with their plan as Dabi goes to the scientist to try to get a better version of the Nomu, or see if the doctor has a better version of the Nomu. And when he gets there, the doctor and him have a little chat, and it basically starts like this. Dabi walking into the room as he says, doctor, Shigaraki wants to know if you have any Nomu that are better than the ones you tried to, the ones you gave us, because they ain't doing it. Krampus is actually, not really struggling too much against these Nomu. I think we need a better one. And the doctor turns, tilts his eyebrow as he says, Krampus, the fictional thing. And that's what he says to Dabi. And Dabi's like, okay, it might be fictional for a second, but we have a lot of evidence to prove that it's not. But just for our sake, do you have anything that could help us? Genuinely. I'm being honest. Anything at all. And the doctor raises a finger. He says, give me one moment. Just 1 second. Let me take a look real quick. And, there it is. And after the doctor says that, that's when Dabi gets the Nomu that he got originally. when he, used it to fight Endeavor. As the doctor says, use this one. This one's more smarter than the other Nomu. It can actually talk, and it has better regeneration, and its fighting capabilities are more smarter than its common brethren. And Dabi just looks at him and says, okay, well, thanks, I guess. Because again, it's all for Shigaraki, right? And all for one, and whatever else we're planning on doing. The doctor's like, yeah, sure, it is. Whatever, just take it. And then, after that, Dabi was surprised how quickly the doctor was convinced. And then he takes a moment and thinks about it as he's taking this Nomu back to their hideout. And he takes a moment, he thinks about it, he's like, I feel like we're being used to test this Nomu. I don't like it, but I genuinely also don't care because I would rather have something stronger than those other versions of it. So, when they all get back together, they make a better plan to make themselves more enticing for Krampus. What do I mean by that? Well, they plan it out. They basically have it where all of them are in the same room, and Krampus is going to go after them. There's regular Nomu and this new type of Nomu. So when Krampus comes and tries to get them, they have a real fight and Krampus loses. Well, in Shigaraki's words, they defeat the raid boss and they actually win. And that's their plan. So as they're setting it up, they try to find their broker, but they find out now that he's actually dead. He's dead, he got killed, and they don't know when Krampus killed him, but they have to hurry fast before Krampus shows up for them again. So that they set up the trap, basically having some Nomu in the same way how they did it with Toga a little bit, but the floor doesn't break this time. And a room where their powers don't really destroy it too much, so they don't, friendly fire type stuff, because they realize they have to work together in this case. But they set up everything and the plan is ready. And they're like looking around each other in a circle. And when they do that, that's when Krampus appears in the middle of it and snapping the neck of twice instantly as he says, oh, nice. So what are you bumbling idiots were trying to do, huh? And after Krampus says that, the other two back up, push a button to activate their plan, which is a bunch of Nomu and the new Nomu that they got, the special Nomu. And that's when Krampus raises his eyebrow, saying, really, in all honesty, this again? Do you really think this is going to work? And Shigaraki looks so arrogant in this case, as he says, oh yeah, I know this time it's gonna work, because we got something better than what you expect from last time. And that's when, Deku literally be smart in this case, and he sits there and lets Shigaraki talk. But before Shigaraki could, Dabi actually is the smart one, coming in saying, don't say anything, he wants you to talk, so he knows what's going up. And, Shigaraki's like, what? You were playing me as a fool. And that's when Deku's like, oh, hey, you caught me. In the end, I love seeing you guys look so arrogant, thinking that you got something up in your little sleeve. But hey, I ain't you. Do whatever you want, in all honesty. I'm just saying my point of view of, everything really, in all honesty. But hey, I ain't you. But let's see how this goes, because I don't think you're gonna win how you, think you're gonna win, in all honesty. But whatever, I guess. That's when they go at it. All the Nomu attacking, Deku in this case, as he's, like before, wrecking a few of them. And Dabi and Shigaraki do come in and try to help. But this time, Deku does get sign blinded by this new Nomu. A faster one, a stronger one, a smarter one, as it actually like stuns him. It stuns Deku in this case, and he's taken aback, very stunned for a moment, as like a few Nomu start pounding on him as he, well, is taking all this damage. But since Deku, as you know, as Krampus, he's able to shrug it off for a second and then kill a good amount of the Nomu. And he does something interestingly. He throws something, and it just drills into a bunch of Nomu's heads, killing them quickly. And as it's going on, as the battle's still raging, this new Nomu is actually giving Krampus a hard time, a very, very hard time. And he's actually very impressed about it. He actually likes this. It's actually making him work hard for once. But in the end, the carnage continues until, well, there's only 3 people left. The new Nomu, Dabi, and Shigaraki. But in the midst of the fight, Shigaraki did get a hit off on, well, Deku, disintegrating one of his arms, but it's slowly regenerating back. Like a really slow and like kind of disturbing way of regenerating back. And he looks at them saying, "Oh, you actually gave Krampus a run for his money for once. Or did you? In all honesty, this was really fun, but one of you have to die. Or should I really say all of you? Because I ain't dying. I can't die." And after he says that, the other 2 try to attack, and the new Nomu tries to attack as well, but he moves really fast, killing Dabi in the process, and throwing him at Shigaraki. And right when that happened, the new Nomu like ran in, tackling freaking Deku out a 5-story window to try to crush him to death, basically, with gravity. But as that's going on, freaking Shigaraki just decays freaking Dabi's corpse, because he would do that. And he gets his ass back up, looking over the edge, seeing the Nomu and, well, Deku just going all the way down until he sees a mist coming off of the creature in this case. And it's basically Deku disappearing and reappearing behind him saying, "Did you really think you can escape Krampus like that?" And after Shigaraki heard that, he felt a snap on his lower neck. Then all he saw was, well, him looking behind himself now. And, well, Krampus looking at him as he says, "Have a nice fall." And after, well, Deku says that, he pushes Shigaraki's body, making him fall to his death. Because guess what? Even though Deku snapped his neck, he did a little magic to make sure making sure that Shigaraki saw what Deku did to him before he fell to his death. But that's when the new Nomu, comes back at him, because Deku thought he killed it, but it wasn't dead. It still was alive. So it just came right back at him, and this time Deku looks like he's not playing games anymore, because he's getting tired of this regenerating bastard, as he does a full drill-like fist with his hands and just pierces the lower jaw, going all the way through the mouth, hitting this Nomu in the brain. And guess what? Right when he does that, he makes his hand explode, killing the Nomu, but his hand's like perfectly fine. But then, that's when he's like, "Man, I hate having to deal with supervillains sometimes." But that's when Deku, when he leaves, he takes a break. He takes a little break. He sits back at his home in the North Pole, just like Saint Nick, and he just sits there drinking some coffee. But that's when we change point of view to All Might and the heroes, because guess what? They found All For One's bunker, and All Might is going in there for round 2. And that's when he busts through the vault door, because, well, him and the heroes, figured out that they could just blow off the locks, and then All Might does the rest. So, well, that happens. And the moment that that happens, All For One turns, sees All Might, and he says, "Do you know what you have done? Do you know? No! He's gonna come for me!" But even though All For One says that, All Might doesn't care. He runs in and like punches All For One on like the center mass of his, well, blob that he calls a face, launching him through the roof of the bunker, creating a big crater that goes up to the surface. And as they're fighting it out, that's when Deku, as the ability, his sense, to sense All For One in this current moment, and, well, Deku thinks about it, and he says, "You know what? Yes, I'm gonna go and deal with that bastard for the final time." And yes, his arm's all healed up. So he appears right behind All For One, and All Might sees him, and he says, "What? You're here?" And he looks at All Might and he says, "Yeah, sure, I am here, but don't worry, we'll work together on this guy." And All Might actually smiles and says, Fair enough, Krampus, let's do this." Then they are fighting with All For One. All For One's trying everything at this point, using his powers, trying, and he is knocking them around. He is knocking All Might like around a bit, and Deku a little bit as well. But All Might goes behind, basically trapping All For One in a weird body lock. He's using his one of his legs to hold All For One's legs together. He's using his arms to lift up All For One's arms so he, can't move them. And that's when freaking Deku comes in, punching All For One through the chest, but also using his other hand to punch through All For One's skull, ripping out both things at the same time, basically doing a Mortal Kombat fatality. And that's when All For One dies. And All Might lets go of the corpse in this case, and All For One's body falls to the floor and about to explode. But that's when Deku, out of all the necessity, turns to All Might and says, I had a good run for like 50 billion years, so I'll see you when I see you. And All For One's body is about to, it's glowing hot. Basically, Deku grabs it, and All Might's like, "Wait, what are you doing?" And then, from a distance, a big explosion that would dwarf any nuclear explosion happens from very far away in the middle of the ocean. That's pretty far away from Japan, but it's all the way up in the sky. And All Might's like, "Damn, I just got saved by Krampus." And that's when we cut to a little scene. A certain individual who's sitting at the North Pole, just sitting there on his, vacation since, Christmas is over. And he says, "Oh my goodness, next time when I do stuff like this again, I ain't gonna deal with someone who explodes like that." And that's where we're gonna cut off the what if. So there you go, guys. Enjoy what I said in the past for a moment. Thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen, and boys and girls, and all that good news and all that type of stuff. I'm glad you guys took a second to watch this one-shot video. So, it's not going to continue. That's why the story's super wrapped up. And if any plot holes, let me know so I can learn from those mistakes completely. Again, I might do more one-shots, but here's the key thing. If enough people put it in the comments of the video, and I mean directly of the video, I may actually make more. And I mean, I'll actually turn it into a real series and continue it of different points of views, even though the main story is over. So basically, it's kind of a what if of other characters and stuff, and such and all that. I may make a video as well talking about, hey, what do you guys want me to do? Do you want me to continue doing Deku or other characters? And I'll make a full video where you guys can put your opinion on that video respectfully. But that's all I have to say at the ending here. So have a good Christmas, or if this came out the day after Christmas, have a good, week until July. So that's all I have to say, and peace out.